Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of the TNS Indomitable, watching the stars through the main window. His gray hair was cut short, and his face showed the marks of many years in space. He had fought in dozens of battles to protect human colonies from pirates and hostile aliens. Today felt different, though. Today something big was coming. The communication officer, Dong Wu, looked up from his station. His young face was worried. "Admiral, we're getting a priority message from the Valerian Empire. It's coming through on all frequencies." Taemin walked over to the main screen. He had heard of the Valerian Empire before. They controlled hundreds of star systems and had one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. They had never contacted humans directly before. This could not be good news. "Put it on screen," Taemin said. The screen flickered and then showed a tall alien figure. The creature looked like it was made of living crystal, with sharp edges and glowing blue light coming from inside its body. Its voice was cold and mechanical when it spoke. "I am High Executor Veltharion of the Third Imperial Fleet," the alien said. "I speak for the Valerian Empire. Your species has spread too far into our territory. This will not continue." Taemin crossed his arms and waited. He had dealt with arrogant aliens before. "You will abandon all human colonies beyond your home system immediately," Veltharion continued. "You have exactly 72 of your standard hours to comply. If you refuse, we will destroy every human settlement we find. Your people will learn their place in this galaxy." The message ended. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Tactical Officer Hae Jin broke the silence. She was a sharp woman in her 30s who had never lost a space battle. "Admiral, our scouts report a massive fleet moving toward the Kepler system. 847 ships, all of them are bigger than anything we have." Chief Engineer So Young looked up from her station. She was older than Hae Jin, with steady hands and a calm voice. "Their ships are using technology we've never seen before. Energy shields, plasma weapons, and hulls made from some kind of super metal. On paper, they should be able to destroy our entire fleet without taking any damage." Taemin nodded slowly. He walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. These people had served with him for years. They had fought impossible battles before and won. They trusted him and he trusted them. "So they want us to run away," Taemin said. "They think we're just another weak species that will bow down when they show their big fleet." "Sir," Dongwu said, "should I send a reply? Maybe we can negotiate?" Taemin smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just found prey. "Oh, we'll send a reply," he said. "Tell them we'll meet them halfway, and send a message to all human fleets. Tell them to converge on the Kepler system." Hae Jin raised an eyebrow. "All fleets, sir? That's only 127 ships against their 800. "Numbers aren't everything," Taemin said. "Dongwu, send this message to High Executor Veltharion. Tell him that humanity thanks him for the warning, but we decline his generous offer. Tell him we look forward to meeting his fleet in person." So Young grinned. "Sir, should I start preparing the special weapons?" "Everything we have," Taemin confirmed. "Make sure all ships know the plan. We're going to show these aliens what happens when they threaten human families." The next few hours were busy. Messages flew between human ships scattered across dozens of star systems. Captains who had been hunting pirates suddenly changed course for Kepler. Mining ships armed with industrial equipment joined the fleet. Even some civilian vessels volunteered to help. Captain Minho of the destroyer Soul's Vengeance was one of the first to respond. His ship was small and fast, built for quick strikes against enemy vessels. He had grown up on a colony world and knew what it meant to protect his home. "My ship is ready," he reported to the fleet network. "We've loaded our best kinetic rounds and our engines are running hot. Just tell us where to aim." Fighter pilot Daeun was another volunteer. She flew a small fighter craft that could move faster than most people could think. She had learned to fly by racing through asteroid fields for fun. Now she would use those skills for something more important. "Crimson Eagle Squadron is standing by," she reported. "We've practiced the new attack patterns. The aliens won't know what hit them." As reports came in from across human space, Taman felt a familiar feeling in his chest. It was the same feeling he had gotten before every major battle. It was not fear. It was excitement. The aliens thought they were facing primitive humans, with crude technology. They thought human ships were weak because they were made of simple metal instead of exotic materials. They thought human weapons were inferior because they used kinetic energy instead of exotic particles. They were wrong about all of it. Hyojin pulled up tactical displays showing both fleets. Admiral, they're moving in standard Imperial formation. Very organized, very predictable. Their ships are powerful but slow. They're designed to overwhelm enemies with superior firepower. And our ships? Taman asked. Fast, maneuverable, and unpredictable, Hyojin replied. Plus, our crews have been fighting real battles while they've been conquering peaceful planets. We know how to adapt. So-young added her analysis. Their energy shields are impressive, but they're designed to stop energy weapons. Our mass drivers and railguns should go right through them. They've never fought anyone who still uses kinetic weapons. Taman nodded. The plan was coming together. The aliens expected a quick, easy victory against inferior technology. Instead, they would face something they had never encountered before. Humans who had learned to fight in the hardest school in the galaxy. Send one more message to the fleet, Taman ordered. Remind everyone what we're fighting for. Every human colony, every family, every child who dreams of exploring the stars. We're not just defending territory, we're defending the right of humanity to exist in this galaxy. The message went out and responses came back immediately. Every captain, every pilot, every engineer in the human fleet sent the same reply. Ready to fight. Taman looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was coming to destroy everything humans had built. They thought they were bringing overwhelming force against a weak enemy. They had no idea they were about to meet predators who had learned to hunt among the stars. High Executor Veltharion stood in the command center of his massive flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was 3 kilometers long and contained enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Around him, hundreds of similar vessels moved through, space in perfect formation. The Third Imperial Fleet had never known defeat. Through the viewing ports, Veltharion could see the approaching human fleet. Their ships looked tiny compared to his massive warships. The human vessels were made of simple metal, with no elegant curves or artistic design. They looked like tools rather than proper warships. Analysis complete, reported Subcommander Kethrion, his crystalline body flickering with data streams. 127 human vessels detected. Largest ship measures only 800 meters. Their hulls appear to be basic titanium, alloy, no energy shielding detected. Veltharion felt satisfaction flow through his crystal matrix. This would be even easier than expected. The humans had not even bothered to bring their best ships. Perhaps they knew resistance was hopeless. Weapon status? He asked. All plasma cannons charged and ready, Kethrion replied. Ion torpedoes loaded. Target acquisition systems are locked onto the human formation. We can destroy their entire fleet in the first volley. Excellent, Veltharion said. Open a communication channel. I want to give them one final chance to surrender. On the human side, Captain Minho watched the alien fleet approach through his ship's sensors. The Soul's Vengeance was a small destroyer built for speed and quick strikes. Compared to the massive Valerian ships, it looked like a minnow swimming next to whales. Captain, his sensor operator reported, the alien flagship is trying to establish communication. Put it through, Minho said. Veltharion's image appeared on the screen. His alien features showed clear disdain as he looked at the human captain. Human. Commander, Veltharion said, you face the might of the Valerian Empire. Your primitive vessels cannot hope to match our technology. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Minho smiled. It was the kind of smile a wolf might give a sheep that had wandered too close. Thanks for the offer, Minho replied, but we'll pass. See, you made one big mistake. You threatened our families. That tends to make us cranky. Veltharion's form flickered with confusion. Your families? We offer you honorable death in battle, yet you speak of families? That's the difference between us, Minho said. You fight for conquest, we fight for home. The communication ended. Veltharion turned to his sub-commanders, his confusion growing. Strange creatures, these humans. No matter. Begin the attack. Target their largest vessels first. Across the Valerian fleet, massive weapons systems powered up. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids swiveled toward human targets. Ion torpedoes armed with enough energy to vaporize city blocks prepared to launch. The alien crews worked with mechanical precision, following procedures they had used to conquer dozens of species. But something was wrong. The human ships were moving in ways that made no sense. Engineer Hyunwoo aboard the carrier New Busan watched his instruments as his ship performed a maneuver that should have been impossible. The massive vessel rolled and twisted through space, like a fighter craft, its engines firing in sequences that defied every rule of space combat. "How are we pulling 12 Gs without crushing the crew?" a young technician asked. Hyunwoo grinned. "Inertial compensators built by people who learned engineering in Jupiter's gravity well. Our ancestors had to design ships that could operate in the worst conditions in the solar system. These aliens have never fought anyone who came from a death world." The human fleet scattered in all directions as the first Valerian volley fired. Hundreds of plasma beams lanced through space, each one carrying enough energy to destroy a human ship completely. The Valerian crews watched their targeting computers confirm hits on multiple targets. But when the energy beams reached their targets, the human ships were no longer there. Fighter pilot Dayun laughed as her small craft spun between two plasma beams that passed close enough to heat her hull plating. Her fighter, the Dancing Phoenix, moved like a bird through the alien fire. "This is Crimson Eagle Leader," she reported over the fleet network. "Their targeting systems can't keep up with our maneuvers. They're firing at where we were, not where we are." "Confirmed," replied Tactical Officer Hai Jin from the Indomitable. "Their computers are designed for enemies who fight in formation. They can't handle independent movement patterns." Admiral Taemin watched the battle develop from his command center. The alien fleet was impressive, but they fought like machines. Every movement was calculated. Every attack followed doctrine. They had no experience fighting enemies who could think creatively. "All ships," he broadcast, "begin Phase 2. Show them what improvisation looks like." Captain Sung Min of the cruiser Incheon's Fury received the order and grinned. His ship was in the middle of a complex spiral maneuver that used the local star's gravity to increase speed while avoiding enemy fire. It was a technique human pilots had developed for racing through solar windstorms. "You want to see impossible?" he broadcast on open channels, making sure the aliens could hear. "Watch this." The Incheon's Fury dove toward the system's gas giant, its engine screaming at maximum power. Valerian sensors tracked the ship's trajectory and calculated its destruction as it headed straight for the planet's crushing gravity. Instead, the human ship used the gravity well like a slingshot, whipping around the planet at tremendous speed and emerging on a completely different vector. The maneuver added so much velocity that the ship's kinetic weapons would have devastating impact when they fired. Veltharion watched in shock as more human ships performed similar maneuvers. They used asteroids, solar radiation, and even the magnetic fields of planets as tools for navigation. It was as if they had turned the entire star system into their weapon. "Impossible," he transmitted to his fleet. "No species fights this way. Space combat requires discipline, formation, predictable tactics." "Sir," Kethrian reported, "we're having difficulty maintaining target locks. The human ships are using unpredictable acceleration patterns. Our computers cannot calculate their next positions." On the human side, Medical Officer Su Jin watched the tactical display from her position aboard the hospital ship Mercy of Terra. As a doctor, she was trained to see patterns that others might miss. What she saw in the alien fleet worried her. "Admiral," she reported, "I'm analyzing their movement patterns. They're fighting exactly like their training manuals probably tell them to. No adaptation, no creativity. It's like they've never faced an enemy that could surprise them." Taemin nodded grimly. "That's what happens when you spend centuries conquering peaceful species. You forget how to fight real warriors." The first human attack came without warning. 3 destroyers, led by Captain Minho, had used the chaos of the battle to position themselves perfectly. They fired their railguns in perfect coordination, sending tungsten rods at incredible speed toward a single Valerian battleship. The alien ship's energy shields were designed to deflect plasma and ion weapons. They had no effect on solid metal traveling at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rods punched through the shield like it wasn't there, then through the hull, then through the ship's core systems. The massive Valerian battleship died in seconds. Veltharion felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. His superior technology was failing. His overwhelming numbers were being outmaneuvered. His perfectly trained crews were being outsmarted by what he had thought were primitives. All ships, he broadcast, increase firing rate. Saturate their positions with plasma fire. But even as he gave the order, more human ships were moving into attack positions. They had turned space combat into an art form, using every advantage their environment could provide. The aliens were learning a terrible lesson. Superior technology meant nothing if you didn't know how to use it against an enemy who refused to fight by your rules. The battle reached its full fury as both fleets clashed in the darkness between stars. The Valerian Empire's Third Fleet, once the most feared force in the galaxy, found itself fighting an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. High Executor, Veltharion gripped the command rail of his flagship as another of his battleships exploded in the distance. The massive vessel, the Pride of Valeria, had been struck by coordinated fire from 6 human ships that had somehow appeared from impossible angles. "Report," he demanded. Subcommander Kethrion's crystalline form flickered rapidly as he processed. "Data streams. We have lost 43 vessels. The humans have lost only 7. Our targeting computers cannot track their movement patterns." Veltharion could not understand what was happening. His ships had superior weapons, stronger shields, and better armor. By every calculation, the human fleet should have been destroyed. In the first exchange of fire, "How are they moving like that?" he asked. On the human side, pilot Jiwoo led her fighter squadron through the alien formation, like wolves hunting sheep. Her small craft, barely larger than an atmospheric fighter, danced between plasma beams that could vaporize mountains. "This is Ghost Squadron," she reported over the fleet network. "The aliens are trying to hit us with area effect weapons now. They're getting desperate." Admiral Taemin heard the report from his position on the Indomitable's bridge. His tactical, Officer Hyojin, was coordinating the fleet's movements with the precision of a master chess player. "Admiral," Yijin said, "their formation is starting to break down. They're clustering their ships for mutual protection, but that just makes them easier targets for our mass drivers." Taemin nodded. The plan was working perfectly. The aliens had expected to fight an enemy that would meet them head-on with brute force. Instead, they faced humans who had learned to fight smart. Captain Sung Min of the Inchen's Fury demonstrated this principle as he led his ship in a devastating attack. Run. Using the gravity well of a nearby asteroid, his cruiser achieved impossible velocity before firing its main weapons. The railgun rounds struck a Valerian dreadnought at 20% of light speed. The kinetic energy was so enormous that the alien ship's hull simply ceased to exist where the rounds hit. The massive vessel broke in half, its energy cores detonating in brilliant flashes. "Target destroyed," Sungmin reported calmly as if he had just completed a routine exercise. Engineer So Young monitored the battle from the Indomitable's engineering section. Her screens showed the status of every human ship in the fleet. Despite being outnumbered 6-1, they were winning. "Admiral," she reported, "all ships are performing within normal parameters. No critical damage to any vessel. The aliens still haven't figured out how to hit us." The reason was simple. The Valerian Empire had grown powerful by conquering peaceful species with overwhelming technology. They had forgotten how to fight enemies who could adapt and improvise. Fighter pilot Dayun proved this point as she led her squadron in an attack. That should have been suicide. Flying directly into the point defense fire of a Valerian carrier, her fighters used their incredible speed and maneuverability to avoid every shot. "The trick," she explained to her wingman over a secure channel, "is to never be where they expect you to be. These aliens think in straight lines. We think in spirals." Her fighters struck the alien carrier's hangar bay with pinpoint precision, destroying dozens of enemy craft before they could launch. The attack crippled the carrier's ability to deploy its own fighters. Medical Officer Sujin watched the battle from the safety of the hospital ship Mercy of Terra. As a doctor, she was trained to analyze patterns and symptoms. What she saw in the alien fleet's behavior concerned her. "Admiral," she reported, "I'm seeing signs of panic in their formations. Ships are breaking from their assigned positions. Some are even firing on their own vessels by mistake." Captain Minho confirmed this observation as his destroyer engaged a group of Valerian frigates. The enemy ships were firing wildly, their weapons targeting empty space where human ships had been minutes ago. "They're fighting their own programming," he observed. "Their training tells them to maintain formation and follow doctrine, but that's getting them killed. So they're breaking ranks, which makes them even easier targets." The human fleet took advantage of this confusion with ruthless efficiency. Communications Officer Dongwu coordinated their attacks with split-second timing, ensuring that multiple human ships could focus fire on single alien targets. "Target designation Alpha 7, he broadcast. "All available ships concentrate fire." 6 human destroyers and 2 cruisers turned their weapons on a single Valerian battleship. The coordinated barrage overwhelmed the alien vessel's defenses in seconds. Another enemy ship died in nuclear fire. High Executor Veltharion felt something that no Valerian commander had experienced in 3 centuries: the cold touch of possible defeat. His massive fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have posed no threat. "All ships," he broadcast desperately, "converge on my position. Form defensive sphere formation around the flagship." But even as his remaining ships moved to obey, human forces were already positioning themselves for the killing blow. Admiral Taemin had anticipated this move. "Phase 3, he ordered. "All ships, execute Operation Hammerfall." Captain Hyunwoo aboard the carrier knew. Busan received the order with grim satisfaction. His ship launched every fighter and bomber it carried, while its main guns began charging for a decisive strike. The human plan was brilliant in its simplicity. While the aliens clustered together for protection, human ships had moved to surround them completely. Using the asteroid field at the edge of the system, they had hidden dozens of vessels in the shadows of massive rocks. Now those ships emerged like predators from their hiding places. The aliens found themselves surrounded, their defensive formation turned into a trap. Fighter pilot Jiwoo led the final assault, her squadron diving through the enemy formation like a spear through armor. Behind her came waves of human bombers, their weapons loaded with the most destructive ordnance humanity could create. "For every human colony they threatened," Jiwoo said over the open channel, making sure the aliens could hear. "For every family they wanted to destroy. This is what happens when you pick a fight with Earth." The bombers struck with devastating precision. Fusion warheads designed to crack asteroids punched through alien hulls like paper. The mighty Valerian fleet, pride of the Empire, was being torn apart by enemies they had thought were primitive savages. Veltharion watched his fleet die around him and finally understood the truth. The humans were not primitive. They were predators who had learned to hunt among the stars. They had turned warfare into an art form, using every advantage they could find or create, and they were showing mercy only because they chose to, not because they had to. As more alien ships exploded in the darkness, the High Executor realized that his empire had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened something that had been sleeping peacefully among the stars, something that had evolved to fight in the harshest environment in the galaxy. They had awakened humanity's true nature. The space around Kepler 442 had become a graveyard of Valerian ships. What had begun as a confident Imperial advance had turned into a nightmare of burning metal and escaping atmosphere. High Executor Veltharion stared at his tactical display, in growing horror as another cluster of his vessels disappeared from the screen. "Status report," he demanded, his crystalline voice cracking with stress. Sub-Commander Kethrayon's form flickered rapidly as he processed the devastating data. "We have lost 512 vessels. 600,000 crew members are dead or missing. The humans have lost only 19 ships." The numbers were impossible. The Empire's Third Fleet had been the strongest military force in known space. They had conquered entire civilizations without losing more than a handful of ships. Now they were being systematically destroyed by what they had thought were primitive barbarians. Captain Young-Soo of the heavy cruiser Gwangju's Thunder demonstrated exactly why the aliens were losing so badly. His ship worked in perfect coordination with two other human vessels to perform what the fleet called a Terran triangle. Using the gravitational pull of the system's gas giant, all three ships slingshot around the massive planet at different angles. They emerged from behind the planet simultaneously, approaching a Valerian battleship from three impossible directions at once. The alien point defense systems could not track all three targets. Their computer algorithms had been designed to handle single-ship attacks or coordinated formations, not independent vessels approaching from mathematically impossible vectors. "Fire," Young-Soo ordered calmly. Three streams of tungsten rods converged on the enemy battleship. The kinetic impact was so massive that the alien vessel simply disintegrated. There was no explosion, no dramatic death. The ship was there one moment and gone the next, converted into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Veltharion watched the destruction and felt something crack inside his consciousness. How are they coordinating without quantum communication? Our scramblers should make their fleet coordination impossible. The answer came from Communications Officer Dong Wu aboard the Indomitable. He was listening to the Valerian communications and could hear their confusion. "Admiral," he reported to Taemin, "they think we need their fancy quantum networks to coordinate. They don't understand that humans have been working together for thousands of years without fancy technology." Taemin smiled grimly. "Tell me what you see when you watch our fleet movements." Dongwu studied his displays for a moment. "I see Captain Minho adjusting his attack vector because he knows Captain Sung-min will need covering fire in 30 seconds. I see Pilot Da-Yoon changing her approach because she can tell from Commander Young-Soo's engine signature that he's planning a gravity slingshot maneuver." "Exactly," Taemin said. "They see technology, we see teamwork. This human ability to anticipate each other's actions was something the Valerian Empire had never encountered. Their rigid hierarchy and standardized tactics made coordination simple but predictable. Human crews had learned to read each other's intentions through years of flying together, fighting together, and trusting each other completely. Engineer So Young demonstrated this principle as she coordinated damage control across the human fleet. When the destroyer Busan's Honor took a glancing hit from an alien plasma cannon, she immediately began rerouting power and resources from other ships without being asked. Incheon's Fury. "Transfer your backup power cells to Busan's Honor," she ordered. New Seoul deploy repair drones to assist. Gwangju's Thunder provide defensive screen during repairs. The entire operation took less than 5 minutes. The damaged destroyer was back in fighting condition before the aliens could exploit its temporary weakness. Veltharion watched this coordination with growing despair. "They repair damage faster than we can inflict it," he reported to his remaining sub-commanders. "How is this possible?" The answer was that humans had learned to maintain their ships while fighting in the most dangerous environment in the galaxy, space itself. Every human engineer had trained to perform repairs under battle conditions in zero gravity with limited resources. They treated spacecraft maintenance like emergency medicine, working fast and efficiently while under extreme pressure. Captain Minho proved this point as his destroyer. Seoul's Vengeance led a devastating charge through the center of the Valerian formation. His ship had taken damage to its port engine cluster, but his crew had jury-rigged a repair using spare parts from the galley food processors. "You want to know the secret to human engineering?" He broadcast on open channels as his ship punched through a gap in the alien formation. "We fix things with whatever we have, not whatever the manual says we need." His destroyer's improvised engine modifications allowed it to achieve acceleration that should have been impossible. The ship moved through the enemy formation like a bullet, its railguns firing continuously at point-blank range. 3 more Valerian ships died before the aliens could react to his presence. Fighter pilot Jiwoo added to the carnage as she led her squadron in attacks that defied every rule of space combat. Her fighters moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually based on mathematical chaos theory. The result was flight paths that no computer could predict. "They're trying to use pattern recognition to track us," she reported. "But there's no pattern to recognize. We're flying pure instinct now." Her squadron struck a Valerian carrier like a swarm of angry insects. The alien ship's massive size, which should have been an advantage, became a liability as the human fighters found dozens of weak points to exploit. Medical Officer Su Jin, watching from the hospital ship Mercy of Terra, noted something interesting about the alien responses. "Admiral, I'm seeing signs of psychological breakdown in their communications. They're starting to panic." She was right. The Valerian Empire had built its power on technological superiority and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that could match their firepower while exceeding their tactical flexibility. The psychological impact was devastating. Individual alien ships began breaking formation without orders. Some fled toward the edge of the system. Others fired wildly at empty space where they thought human ships might be hiding. A few even began firing on their own vessels, their crews so confused they could no longer tell friend from enemy. Admiral Taemin watched this breakdown with professional interest. He had seen it before, in pirates and raiders who had never faced organized resistance. The moment they realized they couldn't win easily, their morale collapsed completely. "All ships," he broadcast, "prepare for final assault. Target their command vessel." The human fleet began to converge on Veltharian's flagship. The massive ship was still dangerous, its weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. But it was also a symbol. Once it fell, the battle would be over. Captain Hyunwoo aboard the carrier New Busan launched every remaining fighter and bomber he had. "For everyone who ever dreamed of seeing the stars," he said over the fleet network. Engineer So Young diverted all available power to the main guns of every human ship. "For every colony world they threatened to destroy," she added. Communications. Officer Dongwoo opened channels to every human vessel in the fleet. "For the right to exist in this galaxy without bowing to anyone," he said. The final assault began with a coordinated barrage that lit up space like a new star. Hundreds of human weapons fired simultaneously at the Valerian flagship. The alien ship's shields flared and sparked as they tried to absorb impossible amounts of kinetic and thermal energy. Veltharian felt his ship shudder around him as the human attack struck home. Emergency alerts filled the air as system after system failed under the devastating bombardment. "All remaining ships," he broadcast desperately, "protect the flagship at all costs." But there were so few ships left to respond. The mighty Third Fleet had been reduced to fewer than 100 vessels, most of them damaged and fleeing. As his flagship began to die around him, Veltharian finally understood what his empire had awakened. These were not primitive savages who could be easily conquered. These were apex predators who had learned to hunt among the stars, and they had just given the galaxy a demonstration of what happened when you threatened their young. The silence that followed the final barrage was more terrifying than the battle itself. High Executor Veltharian's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, drifted powerless in space. Its massive hull was cracked open like an egg, atmosphere and debris streaming from dozens of breaches. Around it, the wreckage of the once mighty Third Fleet painted the darkness with glowing metal and frozen air. Of the 847 ships that had arrived to conquer humanity, fewer than 90 remained. Most of those were damaged, beyond repair, their crews either dead or trapped in failing life support systems. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the destruction through the main viewport. His weathered face showed no satisfaction, no joy in victory. What he felt was the grim understanding that sometimes violence was the only language bullies could understand. "All ships," he broadcast across the human fleet, "cease fire immediately. Begin search and rescue operations for enemy survivors." The order surprised many of his own crew. Communications Officer Dongwoo looked up from his station with confusion written across his young face. "Sir?" Dongwoo asked. "They came here to exterminate our colonies. They threatened to kill our families." Taemin turned to face his communications officer. "Yes, they did, and we stopped them. Now we show them what humanity really is. Tactical Officer Hye-jin understood immediately. You want their survivors to go back to the Empire and tell them what they faced here. Exactly, Tae-min. Confirmed. Dead enemies can't spread warnings, live ones can prevent future wars. Medical Officer Soo-jin was already preparing her teams before the order was officially given. Her hospital ship, Mercy of Terra, moved toward the nearest cluster of damaged alien vessels. Behind her came rescue shuttles from every human ship that could spare them. Medical teams to all damaged Valyrian vessels, she broadcast on emergency frequencies. We are here to provide humanitarian aid. Do not resist. We are here to help. The response from the alien ships was confusion and disbelief. Sub-Commander Kethrion, trapped in the dying command center of the Eternal Dominion, received the human transmission with something approaching shock. They want to help us? He transmitted weakly to what remained of his fleet. After we came to destroy them? Captain Minho of the Soul's Vengeance guided his destroyer alongside a crippled Valyrian frigate. His ship's airlocks connected with the alien vessel, and human rescue teams moved inside to evacuate wounded enemy crew members. Easy, Minho told his teams over the comm system. These are prisoners of war now. We treat them according to the rules of war, not the rules they were going to use on us. The human rescue operations were efficient and professional. Engineer So Young coordinated the efforts, directing ships with the best medical facilities to take on the most seriously wounded aliens. Ships with better life support systems took on larger numbers of survivors. Fighter pilot Da-eun led her squadron in search patterns, looking for escape pods and damaged fighters that might contain survivors. Her small craft moved through the debris field with the same precision she had used in combat, but now she was hunting for lives to save instead of targets to destroy. I've got 3 Valyrian fighters with life signs, she reported. Looks like their pilots are unconscious but alive. Requesting immediate medical evacuation, Engineer Hyun-woo coordinated the technical aspects of the rescue operation. Many of the alien ships had completely different atmospheric requirements and life support systems. His teams had to improvise breathing apparatus and environmental controls to keep the survivors alive. The good news, he reported to Admiral Tae-min, is that most of their crew are still alive. Their ships are built like fortresses, so even when they lose main power, the crew compartments stay intact. High Executor Veltharion found himself face-to-face with Admiral Tae-min via holographic communication. The alien commander was trapped in his damaged flagship, his crystalline form flickering weakly as his ship's power systems failed around him. Why? Veltharion asked, his voice carrying harmonics of confusion and fear. We came to destroy you. Your customs should demand revenge. Tae-min studied the alien commander for a long moment. Revenge accomplishes nothing. We defended ourselves. We won. Now we show mercy because that's what civilized people do. Civilized? Veltharion's form pulsed with confusion. You fight like savage beasts. Your tactics are barbaric, your weapons are primitive. Our weapons work, Tae-min replied calmly. Our tactics win battles, and our civilization teaches us when to stop fighting. Can you say the same about yours? The question hung in the air between them. Veltharion had no answer because the truth was too terrible to speak. The Valyrian Empire knew only conquest and domination. They had never learned when to show mercy because they had never needed to. Captain Young-soo of the Gwangju's Thunder was helping to evacuate survivors from a damaged alien battleship when he made a discovery that chilled him to the bone. Admiral, he reported privately, you need to see these tactical displays. According to their navigation logs, this isn't their only fleet. They have dozens of others just like it. Tae-min absorbed this information without visible reaction. He had suspected as much. An empire that controlled hundreds of star systems would need massive military forces to maintain order. How many ships total? He asked. Best estimate? Over 20,000 vessels, Young-soo replied. This was just one fleet out of dozens. Medical Officer Soo-jin, working to save the life of a badly injured alien engineer, overheard the conversation. Admiral, if they have that many ships, why send just one fleet against us? The answer came from captured alien communications that Dongwu had been monitoring. Because they thought one fleet was more than enough, he reported. In their entire history, they've never needed more than a single fleet to conquer any species. Taemin nodded grimly. The implications were clear. Humanity had just defeated what the aliens considered overwhelming force. When word of this battle reached the Empire, they would send everything they had. Sir, Tactical Officer He-jin said quietly, what do we do when they come back with their main fleet? Taemin smiled, and it was the same predatory expression he had worn when the aliens first issued their ultimatum. We'll be ready for them. Send a message to Earth, tell them to begin full military mobilization. Every shipyard, every factory, every person who can hold a wrench. He turned back to the holographic image of Veltharion. High Executor, I want you to deliver a message to your empire for me. What message? The alien asked weakly. Tell them, this was us being gentle, Taemin said. Today you faced 3 local defense fleets, we have hundreds more. Tell your superiors that humanity doesn't want war, but we've been preparing for it since before we left our homeworld. Communications Officer Dongwu began transmitting detailed battle recordings to every functioning Valerian ship. The recordings showed human tactical capabilities, weapon effectiveness, and fleet coordination in perfect detail. Why are you showing us your capabilities? Veltharion asked in confusion. Because we want your empire to know exactly what they're dealing with, Taemin replied. We're not hiding our strength, we're advertising it. Sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to make sure your enemies know they can't win it. Fighter pilot Jiwoo, helping to transfer alien survivors to human medical ships, heard the transmission and smiled. Admiral's playing 4-dimensional chess, she said to her wingman. He's turning our mercy into a weapon. She was right. Every alien survivor who returned to the Empire would carry the same message. Humanity had destroyed their strongest fleet while barely taking casualties, then had shown mercy to the defeated. The psychological impact would be enormous. Captain Sungmin of the Incheon's Fury understood the strategy perfectly. We're not just showing them our military strength, he observed. We're showing them our moral strength. That's what will really terrify them. As the last of the alien survivors were evacuated from their dying ships, Admiral Taemin transmitted one final message to High Executor Veltharion. Tell your empire that humanity will defend itself against any aggression, he said. But also tell them that we prefer peace. If they want to coexist with us as equals, we're willing to talk. If they want to try conquest again, we'll be waiting. The surviving Valerian ships limped away from the battlefield, carrying with them a cargo more dangerous than any weapon. The knowledge that they had encountered something they didn't understand. A species that could be both ruthlessly effective in war and compassionately merciful in victory. Engineer So Young watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace and turned to Admiral Taemin. Do you think they'll listen? Taemin looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them an enormous empire was about to learn that the galaxy had changed forever. Some will, he said. Others won't. But they'll all know that humanity isn't going anywhere. We're here to stay, and we'll fight for our right to exist among the stars. The battle was over, but the real war was just beginning. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the only language that ancient empires understood, strength tempered by wisdom, violence controlled by mercy, and the unshakable determination to defend what they had built among the stars.